President Yoweri Museveni opportunity to stand again. But since the debate in the public is on, the Fourth Estate will not shy away from that discussion. The question is, as media practitioners, how should we handle that debate? And we'll be inviting you, our viewers, to join in and tell us what you think so far, what has gone on and going forward. There's, of course, a lot of outrage from especially members of parliament. They claim that some of them, at least officially, the Director of Communications has said they are suffering from cyberbullying because MPs' numbers are being shared on social media groups and they are being bombarded with messages from members of the public who are telling them, I think there must be groups encouraging the amendment, but there are many groups that are against the amendment. So let me introduce my panel tonight, starting from my immediate left. Yeah. Dr. Moses Kisa teaches at Northwestern University in the United States. Very nice to have you.
Thank you, Charles, and good evening to our viewers out there.
Desmas Nkunda is an activist, is a veteran journalist and activist, especially on refugees.
Thank you.
Angelo Izama is a journalist and a consultant.
In solidarity with the refugee.
And of course, Onapito Ekomloy. Onapito is Corporate Affairs Director of Nile Breweries, AB InBev.
And a veteran journalist.
He's Legal and Communications.
No, Legal and Corporate Affairs Director.
Legal and Corporate Affairs Director.
Changing it further. Congratulations. We have 2 lawyers here, but
Legal and Corporate Affairs. Actually, there are 3 lawyers, Charles.
No, we'll talk about that later. So, I'm not yet a lawyer. The important thing is that everybody on the panel is a journalist or has a background in journalism. So, gentlemen, let me first put the very basic question. Honor. How should the media handle itself or deal with this debate on lifting age limit?
I think on this one, the media can only be an amplifier. You can't ignore a running story, so to say. So, if you want to analyze, you may caution, but if you want to report, there is a story to report.
What is the story to be reported
because
so far?
Not only are political actors commented, but even ordinary people have commented. So there is a story to report. If based purely on statements, the Minister of Constitutional Affairs indicated by saying it's not a commandment from God whether we shouldn't amend the issue of age limit. And I think a lot of other people have commented. So as media, which is supposed to be a bouncing board for the public, there's a legitimate story to be written and rewritten.
Angelo, where is the story? What is the story?
Well, I think people, when I've seen the debate on age limits, and I wrote about it last month, but I think they're not really debating the age as it is written into the
you need to raise your voice a little. It doesn't. I think they're not speaking you well.
The guys in the studio, then.
Yes, I think we need to.
And the viewers, of course.
And I apologize. I was saying that when people are debating age, which is really about how long you have lived on this earth, in this age debate, the lifting of age limits, they're really not debating how old the president is or future presidents. In the case of Yoweri Museveni, they are debating power. And that's an important story because power is concentrated in the presidency in our political system. If you lift the age limit as is proposed, and I think it will happen, then the constitution even becomes much more important because in effect it becomes like the last will and testament of Yoweri Museveni, who is likely to die in office. So these are like important issues. We're 40 million people being governed. Uganda is an important country in the context of the region. It's a growing economy. So everyone is invested in how power will be restructured. And this is one of the proposals that is important to that.
How does the media, how is the media dealing with it so far? How should it be dealing with it?
I think to treat it with the seriousness it deserves. Because if you take away in essence, a redundant debate about whether or not someone at the age of 75 should run the country, you can look at how power is constituted in Uganda. And in Uganda, we have a long legacy. One of the things that I see people on this in this panel have debated before, is that there has been no real peaceful transfer of power. That's one of the issues that I think should be interrogated in the context of this debate. The second is that, you know, in 1986, there was no vote that brought this current movement into power, and therefore people should deal seriously with, you know, the legacy of the military in the politics of Uganda, because I think you cannot leave it out. Yoweri Museveni is the founder of the current military as we know it. Whether or not he continues to lead the country is tied in with the fate of that military. They have their own views about how the country will go. Therefore, you know, you can't leave the army out of it. The third thing would be, you know, how the economy is managed and how wealth distribution is managed.
Let's come back to that in a moment. Let me just continue with Dismas Kunda. You're saying the debate is creeping into the media. My own reading of it is that the mainstream media, some sections of the media, are treating a little bit cautiously. It's the Observer that broke the story after that Gazette.
Yes.
I've looked at the Gazette. It has no detail at all. It's just an item, an outline, just an item, one item, as being announced in the summary. There isn't flesh with which to discuss, but the intensity of the discussion is so much on social media that mainstream media might be pushed or will be pushed into having to cover it.
But just before this comes in, remember when one MP attempted to table something about it,
yes,
the speaker actually said it would be part of an omnibus constitutional review. So there's already been a clear indication that it's going to be somewhere in there.
Yes. The thing I believe that is what's happening is essentially it's that the main media, the principal media that we have in this country, if we call it the newspapers, the television, the electronic and the print, they are catching up with what the social media is leading them on. The only place, like you rightly said, where we saw that story was when the Observer published that, and it had no details. I haven't seen any other discussion in the mainstream media other than the social media. But social media actually has intensely gone too far. If the discussion that you have on WhatsApp groups or on Facebook are anything to go by, I do think that it's a very serious matter that this country now needs to be open about and bring it in public domain, and we'll have further discussion. My guess, and this is my gut, is that as a journalist, I would be my first caution is probably this is a strategy that is being used by someone to be able to test the waters and understand whence, if this discussion does come, where is it going to go? Where
somebody possibly leaked this to the Observer and said, you've seen this Gazette? Because we don't follow the Gazette that closely sometimes.
How many?
Must have said, have you seen the Gazette? This thing has come.
Yes.
What you've been waiting for has come. Yes.
And I have seen it happen. It's not a new thing that happens in this country. When there is something that is going to become so controversial that it requires quite a lot of public discussion and public debate, something will be thrown in so that people can understand the mood. Where should we concentrate our efforts in bringing this discussion, making sure we win? So and if that is the truth of the matter, then the strategist at that who is making it, be it the communications guys for the party or for the presidency, they're doing a good job.
Dr. Kisa.
Yeah, sure. Let me just pick it up from where this mass has ended. I think it's, you know, testing the waters, but also you know, having the matter in the public domain and normalizing it and giving it credibility early enough such that it can be handled along the way. So the architects realized that they need this to start, you know, they need the wheels to start rolling, and so, you know, throw it out there even if there isn't much substance that we already know, and then, you know, have the issue out there with the people in the public, and it will be accepted. It will be in some ways normalized, because you see, in the eyes and imaginations of many Ugandans, this is a nefarious plot by the establishment, by General Museveni, to once again manipulate the constitution and cling on to power. And so the issue actually is not debating the age limit principle per se. The issue is debating how can General Museveni cling on further. And then on the other hand, those who are standing against him are now asking themselves, how do we stop him? So there is a very important issue at stake here, that you have a presidential monarch who wants to use all manner of machinations to hang on, including having to manipulate the constitution. And so the issue is that how do you carry on with the misrule that you've been engaged in for a long time? On the other hand, those who are resisting you, how do they counter that? So the issue is actually not about the age limit, because in principle, I would imagine that above 75, somebody can still be president of a country like Uganda and manage it properly. Mwai Kibaki in Kenya was president until way beyond 75, and I don't think he was an ineffective president at all. So what the real debate is not the principle of age, but the presidential longevity of Mr. Museveni.
Now, let me just put out a few facts about this debate. It's not entirely new. Once you got rid of term limits in 2005, you expected that the last hurdle to a continuing Museveni presidency was going to be the age. And he's commented, what has been shared extensively on social media is a New Vision headline, in which Museveni was quoted as saying, I will rule until 2006. He was supposed to end there, because there was that controversy around 2001. But since the last election, there was a resolution by the district of Chankwanzi. NRM leaders in the district of Chankwanzi sat down and wrote a resolution. I think it was tabled by their member of parliament, a lady called Nankabirwa, not the chief whip. There's another lady called Nankabirwa.
Rosemary. Not Rosemary.
I'll get the full name. Who presented a request.
Annie Mary, she's called.
Annie Mary Nankabirwa, yes. Which was presented, and it's very well worded, legally structured. Then there was a meeting of chairpersons of the National Resistance Movement who were celebrating their victory as district leaders at Hotel Africana. They also passed a resolution and I think sent a memo to President Yoweri Museveni, and for the first time, State House issued a statement mentioning those details. So there's been background, and people have been waiting for this constitutional amendment. There's been debate that's been going on for some time, and internal discussions. I think the Prime Minister, Dr. Okana Rugunda, has been chairing a group, something called a group of 6 people who are supposed to be discussing constitution amendments in relation to how we conduct elections that have been deferred for so many times. I think one of the last meetings they had, I think about 2 or 3 months ago, they were told that this matter is going to go to a Constitutional Review Commission. And the Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs, Kahindo Tafira, has commented and said this matter will go through. We'll have a Constitutional Review Commission, and then after that, we'll have...
Which then raises the question, Charles, of is it now a question of putting the cart before the horse? I mean, if there's going to be a Constitutional Review Commission, then why do you have moves towards having a bill in Parliament? Because you imagine that the Constitutional Review Commission would precede any kind of tabling of anything in Parliament, because then the bill to be tabled in Parliament would come out of a white paper, which white paper would have come out of a Constitutional Review Commission report.
Yes, sir, I can see you.
Charles, I think we can forget the gymnastics of what's going on about constitutional review, but the reality is, as we have all agreed, the debate is almost, there are 2 elements of this debate. There's idealistic debate, that I would call idealistic, and the realistic debate.
Those are cousins, aren't they?
I think most people, I'm sure, they want an ideal situation, and they can be outraged about President Museveni continuing in power beyond 75, beyond 80. But that's the ideal world, and it's almost the natural thing to say no. And I'm sure many people are right to say so.
He says the same in that interview he did with Patrick Kamara.
And he also gets caught up by the reality. Which reality is that President Museveni came to power in a very, not in exactly constitutional manner, or even his decision to go and wage a guerrilla war was not a constitutional issue. And people tend to forget and not look at that trend and the weight of history which has brought him this far. And I don't think anything is about to change. So people are putting a lot of premium on a constitution from an idealist point of view. But we have a reality of Uganda, which has persisted for the last 35 years, And I don't think that reality, using trends, you can ignore it. And I think the president himself gets caught up in that reality that he tends to behave like most people say he will leave power, but then the reality catches up with him that there are so many interests, including himself, that is stopping him from leaving power.
in a newsroom owner.
Yeah.
If you were editor in a newsroom,
yeah,
how would you position this discussion?
I told you earlier, if you are writing an opinion, most likely you are going to go with a trend and to criticize it. But if you are reporting and analyzing history, you'll say, one, what has been the trend? If you wanted to project what is the outcome, you just look at trends. And you will see that the way this changes since I think the extension of the NRC and all, the trend has been the same.
So what
it was not because there was no stated desire to leave after 4 years. Somehow, due to circumstances,
I'm throwing this out because
so for me, I love to support people who are looking at it from an idealistic point of view, and I think they are perfect.
Okay.
But I'm always looking at the realistic point of view.
Gentlemen, the question I'm trying to deliver here is
because it's one thing to have your opinion, but it's one thing to analyze the reality.
Okay. One of the things out there, and why we are treating this subject with a lot of caution on this particular show, is you can go along with what the president would call a pakazogamba.
The contention,
the contest, a debate of pro and against, opposers and proposers. And if you do that as a media house, I mean as media, you lose it because you might end up validating it. So how do you discuss it in a manner that you can't ignore the subject because it's out there, but you can't, you have to play cautiously, not to validate it.
If for example, and it's good you're asking on Apito, and I've worked with him before as a journalist when he was our editor-in-chief at the Crusader. It's okay, it's just about 20 years ago. But
the principles haven't changed.
They said, I would think that a person like
there is no age limit.
I'm sure
there is age limit.
There's no age limit.
And I'm sure we have all gotten wiser.
I doubt it. So I would think that this on Apito, you wouldn't ignore this story. In particular, at that time, in our olden times, the stories we are going to run a story. It's up to you to look for the what, the tip, and you follow the tip through and be able to get a story. Currently, if you ignored the amount of public discussion that is happening over this subject, as any outlet or any media entity, you'll have to have a certain explanation to do to your readers, because
you'll be falling behind.
Absolutely, you'll be falling behind.
Can we pick this up after a very short break? Let's do the break so that we carry on the discussion. We'll be right back.
Yes, I'm discussing coverage.
The debate on whether or not the age limit should be lifted is intense on and off the air, as you have seen on social media and other platforms that are covering this story. Just during the break, Chris Pikahero told me that the gazettement of the bill, the Constitution Amendment Bill, is part of the process. You first gazette the bill, and then you move towards, to naming a Constitutional Review Commission and set out its terms of reference and the areas it's supposed to be handling. And then after that, I think that will give direction on whether this matter is settled by referenda, settled by an act of parliament, or settled by memoranda from districts, because that's the process of constitution amendment. But gentlemen,
let me step in here. Had I been an editor, because of the gravity of the subject, well, I have to formulate an editorial position on it. I think it is wrong. The practice of Ugandan journalism has always been to sort of be a fence-sitter. But like I told you, and when I used the term, the weight of history, this has nothing to do with age, it has to do with power. And the real practical reality that people are staring at is, what does it mean to have President Yoweri Museveni continue? What does it mean for the next election? We know that elections are getting more expensive and getting much more predictable. Will the country be safer? And also to look at the interests of those with the capacity to exercise influence over or not whether or not he stays or goes. As far as I see, and by the way, I find that journalists in Uganda, including myself, we are not being entirely honest with the public. I wrote on I think June 12th that there would be a constitutional review commission to deal with this matter. And I also put out an article saying that it would be the cost of the peace, that it would be cheaper to bribe MPs to lift term limits, to secure the peace, and the peace being that because Yoweri Museveni is the center of gravity of our political system, the way it is designed now, the support he has outweighs any other counter force, and that the attempt, or any attempts, to shift that gravity will result in weightlessness, which is actually insecurity.
Void.
Yes. And that is really the reality. Today, if you want to look at this age limit question differently, would be to say, what would happen right now, this moment, if Yoweri Museveni was not president?
Does it matter if that happens, if Yoweri Museveni wasn't president today, or wasn't president 5 years later, or in 2006, or 2031?
It certainly matters because of the way our politics is arranged. For example, you have to ask yourself, do political parties, the way these guys who are in parliament, represent actual power in Uganda? And that's one thing. The second thing for me would be, especially those who are opposition leaning, to think the Kizza Besigye, Gisha Muntu and others who, when it comes to elections, when they contest against Yoweri Museveni, that dynamic between them and the longevity of the president in power, that would extinguish the day Museveni is not there. Who will fill that void? Because I can assure you that these opposition leaders, as we know them today, might be irrelevant in a situation where Yoweri Museveni is no longer there.
I've heard some people draw, yes.
But what does that mean, by the way?
Yes.
Yes.
So I guess what we're debating here really is the question of presidential succession, the Achilles heel that this country has faced for a long time and still hasn't been able to resolve it. So what happens to this country when a man who has been at the helm for more than 3 decades, goes away or stays, but there is no plan of the country after him? Now, the Constitution was thought to be the solution to that you would have him step down peacefully after serving 2 constitutional terms. That was supposed to happen in 2006. It didn't happen. Now, the next constitutional, sort of hope would come from he reaches 75 and is supposed to step down, and there has to be a process of finding a replacement for him through an open process of the public picking who they think should be the next president, and that's supposed to happen in 2021. Now, with this attempt to once again remove that constitutional hurdle that would restrain him, because it looks like Mr. Museveni would actually want to die in power. I don't think he has any plans of living life outside of State House. Now, with that hurdle being removed, what happens next?
He might have a position, but just a minute. There was similar debate. Yes, there was similar debate on the media before Moi left power in Kenya, because he also thought about amending the constitution to stay on. There was similar debate in Nigeria with President Olusegun Obasanjo. Actually, he came through here to consult on how he could get a constitution amendment to keep himself in power.
And he was defeated. Yeah.
There was similar debate, I think, in
Ghana, in Ghana too. As well.
In Ghana, yes, in Zambia, and other places.
In Senegal,
the position of the media in those countries was we have a constitution, we are going to report like we have a constitution. President Museveni's term, for example, expires in 2021. He will be above 75 years. He goes home. So don't debate whether the constitution can be amended or not, because we have a constitution as it exists.
And the constitution is the ideal.
I'm happy you are quoting examples, but again, remember, in all those countries, there has never been anything like Yoweri Museveni. If you are looking for
exactly.
just hold on. If you are looking for comparisons, you'll be looking at Zimbabwe. These are guerrilla movements, you know, Rwanda. I mean, the way they come to power, they actually gain power before they come to power, and they consolidate. So you should analyze why countries that have gone through guerrilla wars generally tend to have long-serving leaders, be it Cuba, be it where. There's something unique. So when you cite Ghana, where these are, I'm sorry to say, these are ordinary presidents.
That is not true, by the way.
No, you can say what you want.
But J. Rawlings was a
military man.
Yes, but Museveni is also a military man. So you can't say that
you are not a guerrilla leader.
No.
So cite other guerrilla countries.
So
look at Angola.
What about Mozambique?
What about Angola?
What about Mozambique?
Look,
and what about South Africa?
Hold on. If Samora had not, unfortunately,
and South Africa,
he might have been in power up to this day.
Yes. Now the question is, why go through these motions? Because
look, I'm saying, I'm looking at the reality.
Let the man rule by military decree, if you want.
This debate is important because of positions President Museveni has held over the years. That he has struggled for power and he has held power. 1986, January 29th, he says, what you're seeing is not a mere change of guard. I think it is a fundamental change. Yes. People forget the I think. He wasn't certain. He said, I think this is a fundamental change.
And he said he was going to be here for 4 years.
He was cautious. Yes, he was cautious. He promised that we're going to be here for a transitional period of 4 years. Then after that, we'll hand over to a civilian elected government. I am told before that, there was a discussion of the High Command where he said, 4 years doing what? We need 2 years. And then they told him, but in 2 years, what will you have done? He decided to stay on. Then 1989, you have the first amendment, the first amendment of what the NRC and the NRA had decided to give it life to make the Constitution. Then you have a similar debate after the Constitution is made in 1996, in 1995. You have a similar debate in 2001. And actually, President Museveni puts it in his manifesto and says,
this is my
I
last
am asking
term.
for my final and last term. My
second and last.
My second and last term. 2001. It's on the back page of that year's manifesto and on page 11. And they also made him mention it in his inaugural speech for his campaign. You have a similar debate in 2006. You have a similar debate in 2005-2006. Now you still have a similar debate.
So what I'm only telling you,
if you're dealing with that,
if you look at all that evidence,
yes,
it simply tells you that President Museveni came to power on his own terms, and you can hate or like it.
And all of us should fold our hands.
live on his own terms.
So what he's saying, in a simple terms, when Peter is saying,
we're wasting time.
The fate is sealed. We're wasting time discussing about the.
No. You can discuss the reality. I'm saying let's discuss the reality. I'm not saying
but I want to know why you lead us.
I'm not giving you
my reality.
We don't know the outcome. We don't know what is going to happen.
If that is the reality, why should it consume valuable time of Ugandans?
Because there are people who oppose to that reality. So it's necessary to.
Angelo.
It's actually necessary to oppose that reality, but I'm only giving you the reality. I'm not saying don't oppose it.
Yoweri Museveni is a Ugandan story. But I don't think that this issue here of whether or not he stays or leaves is about him. You see, when you think about the liberation movement that Ona was referring to, and liberation movements in general, and the outcomes that they bring, they involve a lot of people. There are people who are stakeholders in the system that we are debating here. Let's talk about them. Yes, there are people here who have acquired a lot of wealth. I place them in two categories. There are those who have so much wealth that they have buried their heads in the sand. They think the situation will continue without end. There are those who have wealth and power, but looking at the hourglass running, because this thing is going to attenuate at some point, whether or not we debate ourselves sick with this age thing. Okay, there are those those who have power are actually scared, you see. And I mentioned the military. Well, the military anchors our political system. But the military is tied to Yoram Museveni. We don't know what that picture is going to look like without him there. To make this debate about the personal career of Yoram Museveni, I think is wrong for editors. By the way, the quintessential Ugandan problem has never been about who leads Ugandans, is which Ugandans are fighting against each other. And historically, it has always been about regions contesting, tribes contesting. Today, it is about inequality of wealth that is being argued, at least on the streets. That's the sense I get when people talk about this age limit. They are like, oh, you know, who is eating what, and how long will they continue eating? That's what the context in which they're debating. I think those are important issues for the media, and to make this about who remains in State House, I think is diversionary. Well, that's really with the stuff of what it means to me.
Let me just throw something else in here. As part of the comprehensive plan to sell this idea of to sell the Constitution Amendment is a media management plan at different levels, just like classic Museveni, the way he works. He has at different levels how to manage the media, and the danger is for the media to fall into that trap unknowingly. You have two people in studio here, assume Kisa and Dismas support, Angelo and and Ona oppose, and then you have a debate. We should have it, we shouldn't have it. And I'm told part of the media management program is to make sure that the media is playing a role in that direction, in the validation or selling.
In normalizing what otherwise
debate.
is something ordinarily unacceptable, that the constitution has to be changed because of one individual.
Should the media also classify it as unacceptable?
That's the point.
Yes.
So Charles,
yes.
Here is the question: what is the media for? And you know, I read a book by J. Rosen, What Are Journalists For? And I remember writing my Observer column an article with that topic. What are journalists for? Now Onapito thinks that journalists are there to report the reality as it is. I don't think that is what journalism is. We know that journalism, among other things, plays an important role in shaping public opinion and in serving a big public good and advocating for, you know, a certain, you know, society that we all should aspire to. So you can't say that
the media where you are borrowing that from
you
was humiliated by Trump.
Okay, that's fine. You
can
challenge
the reality.
Okay, you can't say that, you know, leave the ideal and focus on the reality. Because you see, so whose reality are you focusing on? And why not the ideal Uganda that we want? We have here a problem of an imperial president who doesn't want to leave power. And this has caused a big polarization problem in Ugandan politics, that you have people now who are arraigned either for or against General Museveni. And you can't debate the issues of the country. You can't debate, you know, where we are going as a country. The focus is on when is Museveni leaving or is he staying. Now, we are now stuck in that. And that's why I disagree with Angelo. I disagree with Angelo when he says this is not about Museveni. It is about Museveni. And you know, leadership in poor countries plays a very big role about where countries, which directions the countries take. And you can't say that, you know, somehow Museveni cannot make a decision about whether he wants to leave power or not. Of course he can make a decision as to whether he wants to leave power or not. We have seen illustrious leaders on the African continent reach a point and say, I have done my bit, I have to leave, regardless of what other forces are arranged around him. Julius Nyerere in Tanzania said, look, I have to, you know, that enough is enough, I must step down and go do other things. If we went by the
leadership
not
a matter of perfection, by design.
But I'll cede my time to you. I'll cede my time to you.
You'll get it.
I want to cede my time to you, but I wanted to say this is a shallow romanticization of what happened in Tanzania. Nyerere could leave because the institutions there are strong, and the examples you gave in each and every one of those countries, the political consensus is what determined what the leader could or could not do, including in Nigeria.
Yes. Now the question would be,
So
where
why I was
Uganda
saying,
is.
yeah, why
Yes.
I was saying it's not about Yoweri Museveni is because you have to refer to the political consensus that exists outside of him.
What is the shallow romanticization, Angelo, you're alluding to? You can just make your point without issuing a broadside. I haven't said anything about Tanzania. I only gave you an example of a leader.
No, you said that it is out of Julius.
I said leaders can make decisions to leave, and I gave you one example. There are many other examples.
But CCM is strong enough.
So make your counter argument. Don't say I'm being shallow.
No, I've said this is a shallow romanticization because I think it's not deep enough in its analysis of the conditions
what's your deep argument?
Here, CCM, by the way, is different from the NRM because as an institution, it could stand any decision that Nyerere could have made. Nyerere could have stayed, yes. Nyerere could have gone.
You know
would have stayed.
the interesting
Do you think NRM will outlast Yoweri Museveni?
The interesting broadside about that is Yoweri Museveni himself, in his new edition of the Mustard Seed, Sowing the Mustard Seed, he talks about his efforts to tell President Nyerere not to leave power. He said, don't leave power, you can't leave now. And Nyerere told him, no, I'm going. And Museveni was saying, where are you going? How can you be going now? You're going to kill this idea of the East African, the rebuilding of the East African community that was broken in 1977. And Nyerere was telling him, no, my time is up, I need to go, and I'm going.
But
can we pick this up?
Yeah, we need to pick up, and we need to bring
the
the nature of Ugandan society also.
We'll
Let's
pick it up after the break.
Where are the people on this?
Welcome to this last segment of the FourthEstate, and we'll be opening a phone line so that you, our viewers, can share with us, or you, our viewer, can share with us what you think about this debate, and especially how the media should handle this particular debate on the Constitution Amendment. Nteje Asimwe is watching us and says, Kisa, Mr. Museveni doesn't want to die in power. He doesn't vote for himself. NRM does. I'm not sure NRM does. I think Ugandans do, or those who vote for him. Go and defeat him in elections. He will leave the political stage. What do you say to him?
Well, first of all, I'm not a politician. I haven't aspired to replace General Museveni. So Ntega Asimwe should address that message to Museveni's competitors, Kizza Besigye and others. And Kizza Besigye will tell Ntega Asimwe that his victory has been robbed, and that you can't defeat Museveni in an election in Uganda because he is the referee, he is a candidate, and it's everything. He has all the state apparatus under his firm grip, and the only way to have him out of power is through a constitutional restraint, and that's why he has to remove the constitutional provisions that stop him from continuing to be in power, because that would be the only way to get him out. As an incumbent, he does wield all the powers to keep himself in State House.
Charles, that just brings me then to the nature of our society. If that is the only way, it means we get in another president who also acquires enough power and stays, if he's younger, stays for another 40 years. It means the people have not reached a stage, for whatever reason, or the nature of our society, to remove a leader who doesn't want to leave, and the people supposedly don't want him.
Oh, no, I don't want to engage in the debate, but I think I want to disagree with you. If you read the preamble, to the 1995 Constitution, specifically it spells out what it wanted the country to run away from. Now that preamble has been, that page was the first to be torn out of the Constitution.
By who? By who?
Whoever did. You're in Parliament.
Whoever tore it was supposedly a minority. What is the majority? Whom you think?
And the question is, where is the majority?
Where is the majority? That's the question.
Where is the majority? Of the majority. I don't know which opinion poll Paul Kayanja in Rutete Fort Poto is referring to, but it says 60% of Ugandans live in the rural. What we want is service delivery. We don't mind whether the Constitution is amended 100 times. After all, opposition is meaningless. Angelo.
The opposition is very meaningful because I think that what the opposition represents is our alternative views on how to govern this country better, alternative views on how wealth should be distributed. These are the issues in contention. I agree with him that the opposition is
and alternative views on how service delivery should be.
It's not meaningless, but it is powerless. And that is a factor that him and others must consider.
Okay.
Like I said, if today Yoweri Museveni is not in power, I think the opposition that we know, Kizza Besigye and others, you would find it you'd find them not as relevant in the new equation. In the new equation.
Okay, Jose Nwabin, I think in Kabula Liantonde says, age limit is more of a biological issue than ideological. When you look at a country like Cuba, which Fidel Castro led for over 50 years up to the time he was 90 years, but it didn't stop Cuba from being one of the countries with best systems like the healthcare system in the whole world. Of the previous presidents who caused problems in our country, who was above 75 years? We should instead advocate for restoration of the 2-term limit. I am told when the omnibus bill is finally presented, one of the trade-offs might be a suggestion that term limits be restored. We have callers online. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Yes.
Yes,
Hello?
sir. Yes, sir. Your name and where you're calling from? Yes, we can hear you. Please, your TV is on and the volume is high. Can you turn the volume down? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
When we think about constitutional amendment,
Yes.
we must know that how Museveni came into power.
Mm.
2, we must know who owns the Ugandan army.
Mm.
3, we must know who controls the police.
Mm.
5, we must know what a dictator actually is and what a dictator can be. Otherwise, let Museveni rule until when he dies.
Okay.
His name?
What's your name, sir? What's your name, sir?
Is that sooner than later,
Yes.
he will leave the power, whether he likes it or not. Thank you.
Okay, you didn't tell us your name, sir? I think he's gone, but he's made his point. Do we have another caller? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Yes, sir. Your name and where you're calling from?
My name is Simon. I'm calling from Kampala, Charles.
Yes, Simon. Go ahead.
Good evening, Charles.
Good evening, Simon.
Thanks for the four discussants or panelists you have this evening. My contribution, one is a response to Angelo. I think I'm angered by the way Angelo is describing fellow panelists there as having shallow romanticization of the situation in Uganda. That's, I think, not very just. Because when it refers to the Tanzanian case, I also know of a story in Tanzania that even the Chama Cha Mapinduzi party itself, the members therein, were against Nyerere resigning, but then and saying we shall be finished without you at the helm. But immediately he threw in the towel. Then the very members who had said the Chama Cha Mapinduzi would be nothing, 75% of them began vying for the position that they already thought Nyerere would hold. So I think that we could describe Angelo's description in more bad ways, but just to be civil, wouldn't like to go that way. Okay. The other thing is he says the reality, it describes that there are stakeholders in this thing, and does not mention citizens as being the stakeholders in this whole debate. I think that's not correct. The next is on Apito on describing the reality that the Museveni lying kind of opinion is the reality for Uganda. I think that citizens have the capacity, even one citizen has the capacity to change the reality that Apito is talking about. And the citizens should not be tempted to think of bringing a party or a reality that would bring consequences to this country. We should be talking about constitutionalism. We should be talking about the rule of law, and not bringing sentiments of Museveni should maintain what he has begun, his own vision. Uganda's destiny is not tied to a single person's dream. We have 40 million people in Uganda, and about probably 25% are able to lead this country. And we can say we have about that same number of visions and missions that can be put ahead for Uganda to determine who should lead them, and not to tie our country to a single party or a single person's whim.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Simon. Do we have another caller? Hello? Hello? Yes, please? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, please.
Good evening.
Good evening. Your name and where you're calling from?
My name is George. I'm from Kawempe.
Yes, George, go right ahead.
Two issues with Izama.
Mm.
One, Angelo seems to have brokered a deal for the MPs. The coincidence between the $100,000 he mentioned and 350 million that the MPs are demanding is telling. I don't know whether the MPs. Secondly,
yes, George.
He seemed to predict doom for Uganda because at some point President Museveni will leave power. So what does he see in the transition, whether it happens now or later by natural causes? What does he see for Uganda? Thank you.
Thank you very much, George. We have another caller. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, yes, sir. Your name and where you're calling from?
Yes, good evening, FourthEstate.
Good evening, sir. Your name?
Simon is my name.
Simon, where are you calling from?
Simon.
I'm calling from Kisasi.
From Kisasi, okay.
Yes, please.
Go right ahead.
Yes, I like the panel, though Onapito and Angelo are playing a mind game. Onapito was in government before. Angelo before he was a critic of government. But nowadays, the way he argues, there's that issue of him being both sides, trying to play a mind game. Anyway, when I look at things, the Museveni you're talking about, one, the institutions are made in State House. I can give an example of what transpired 3 days ago about the Centenary Park. Kaihura talks about the police will be there to oversee the demolition. The next day you see SFC instead of police. Meaning that now the police institution is in State House. You can see that. So the issue is about institutions. The institutions that Museveni put in place is actually he's the one who controls them in State House. So I feel, yes, the argument, the debate is good, but if you drive your debate into how can Uganda have working and independent institutions that can hold such amendments of that article of changing the age limit.
Okay. Thank you, Simon.
Be manipulated in Parliament.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you, sir.
Do you have another caller? Hello? 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 Okay, let's bring the discussion back into studio for a moment. And
hello?
Yes, hello?
Yeah, how are you, sir?
Good, sir. How are you doing? Your name and where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Nadia.
Yes, your name, sir?
Am I talking to the FourthEstate?
Yes, you are.
Oh, yes, yeah. I'm watching from my sitting room, and I thank you for being a very brilliant team.
Thank you.
But God is a God of balance. So I think the team, Napito and the gentleman next to him, are trying to create a bit of balance. Otherwise, it would lose meaning if you're all talking about the same thing and agreeing. If you all agree on the same thing, then the second person is not necessary. However, what I'm saying is that the harsh reality of the situation in Uganda, the ideas you are bringing are incompatible with the reality on the ground. And what Mr. Onapito has said seems to be very realistic, because a revolution in politics has no timetable. Whether it is led by a good man or a bad man, a revolution in politics has never had a timetable. You are scratching your heads that you want to have a timetable. When this must change, when this must be in place, it can never happen. Revolution just rolls on until it ends. Another thing...
Kisa is shaking his head here, if you have noticed.
Hello?
Kisa, Dr. Kisa is shaking his head.
Saying the revolution will go on, you know,
that they can't forever
until they fail.
I think there are times.
Okay.
Another
go ahead, sir.
To understand
yes.
is that Museveni, President Museveni, none of us voted him into power. He came into power with the military means, and all these things like elections we've been having, also are just part of the process of evolution, but actually this man came into power on his own. You can debate until cows come home. You're not going to change anything. I've seen these debates on NTV and other TVs. Some of you started debating when you were young. I can see you are developing bald heads. Nothing has changed on the ground. So this revolution has not changed.
That is Charles.
If you want to hang yourself, you hang yourself.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
His name,
You did tell us your name, but you're calling from Nadia.
Hello?
Your name?
My name is Jesse Rugasira.
Thank you. We have another caller. We'll just take one or two and then we'll bring this discussion back into the studio. Hello? Hello? Okay, let's come back to the studio if we have someone else there. Oh, hello? Hello? I'm told we lost that one. We have another? Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening, sir. Your name and where you're calling from?
From Lera Bonner Bangson.
From Lera, your name, sir?
Yes, my point of concern would have been two issues for the media people.
Sure.
One, to let Ugandans know the spirit of those who are in the Constituent Assembly for the term limit and the age limit was for peaceful transfer of government. That was the sole spirit. And that one, the media people should not run away. To stand firm and remain there. Now, the dictatorship, people were giving them the opportunity for people to give Museveni goodwill. You know, maybe he can give peaceful transfer of government. But on the point, on the dot of people lifting the age limit, I think they maybe will run away. And it remain one thing, the bullet.
Okay.
The maybe will now go away. That goodwill for Museveni to manipulate people will even go away. We don't know whether it will be his military or any other Uganda who can know how to shoot, because there will not be the bush war. Very many African leaders have been assassinated in power. And I bet Museveni will not escape assassination. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have one last caller. Hello? Hello? Yes. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Is this the Fourth Estate?
Yes, it is. Your name and where you're calling from?
My name is Robert. I'm calling from London.
Yes, Robert.
From London?
Yeah, I just want to contribute.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm happy to see Ezama online. He's a childhood friend from Bogolobi.
Okay.
Yeah. For me, my concern is about the fact that Museveni wants to go for another term.
He hasn't said so.
My worry is, if Museveni does not let leave now, we are going to have a serious conflict, because I think for me, if Museveni stays and sees a clear transition, we are going to have a peaceful transition. But if we wait for Museveni to go for another term and dies in power, we are going to have a serious genocide in Uganda. Because everybody who supports him to go for another term is actually eyeing to become president when Museveni goes. So we are going to have a loss of lives, and we will be very worried and sad people.
Robert, that's a very grim prediction.
I love this prediction.
Hello? Okay, I think we lost Robert there. Gentlemen, let's bring the discussion back to the studio, because I can hear there are so many people trying to contribute to the discussion, but we can't have all of them.
The recurring theme in most of the calls is the issue of death. And I think the question has been asked, there is a demand for peaceful transfer of power. Is it not possible that death will actually will lead to a peaceful transfer of power.
In
I
Uganda?
think yes, there have been some cases where, and in many, even in normal life in families, people die and then families remain organized. Death itself has a way of purifying situations.
I don't think you're right on the money there with what happened to Elias Lukwago.
I mean, that's a debate. We are debating. I'm saying
the former mayor of Kampala.
Some people are suggesting that if President Museveni doesn't leave power and dies in power, then there can be no peaceful transfer of power. For me, I think that might actually be the most peaceful transfer of power.
I think you didn't listen to what Izama told you. I think it's the confederation.
That is Izama. I'm telling you now.
No, I'm just telling you.
My analysis.
Listen to you.
I listened, but I disagree with his assumption that actually maybe it's right that if he's forced out and still has interest and is alive, then he could actually have chaos. But if he's not there, so who else will cause the chaos? Since people attend to allege that is the cause of the chaos.
What I say, Charles, and I want to respond to a couple of people, is that death in office for this president is a realistic scenario. And the article that I wrote in June that looked at how easy it is to lift the age limit, looking at reverse commercialization of politics and so on and so forth, just was a realistic assessment of what was going on. I had been told about the Constitutional Review Commission. MPs are already bargaining their rate. That's all I wrote about. I didn't import those things. And journalists are not being honest, because when they talk to MPs, this is what MPs tell them. We want $300 and $100,000. Some say we want $300,000. This is what is being bargained, and that's the way Uganda has been doing its business. But the statement that I made was that if in fact age limits are lifted, that constitution becomes the last will and testament of the president, essentially because, like Ona says, the form of succession will now be stipulated directly there. And it is, you can read the constitution, it says that a vice president will lead the country, and that subsequent to that, elections will be held, and so on and so forth. We can talk about that scenario and how it unfolds.
Do you realistically think that President Museveni has a power departure will? In this country, which is notorious for people writing, most people who want to administer estates of people who have left, they apply for letters of probate because majority of Ugandans don't write wills.
Yeah, but the will in this case would be the constitution, because that will be how power has
How do you want us to believe the constitution? It has been changed. It is a piece of paper. They have described to you that it can be amended as and when it's necessary. So isn't it a period if you even extend it now, you extend and you say that you're going to give him another term, he's going to have 75 years, and you say no. After 80 years, you are done. But what is the 87th year?
Some people have criticized, your callers have criticized my position. In fact, I don't have a particular politics on this matter. I gave a lecture here in this building in 2013, and I said that progress, and I was referring to the oil and gas sector, will only occur when there is a constitutional crisis. You attended that lecture, Charles. I said, why does Uganda need a constitutional crisis? And I spelled it out. Look, I have never agreed with the constant holding of elections without reforming the political system. I have proposed a constituent assembly to reform the nature of government. What Ugandans are suffering with, by the way, is over-representation. It's not about Yoweri Museveni. We have got more elected
with
leaders.
Me earlier today and said our members of parliament are not delegates. They espouse their own views. And I asked him, I was challenging, and I said, I thought we have a representative democracy, and he said, well, depends, but what they debate on the floor of parliament.
You can have that view, Charles, but how do you have a country where you've got 1.7 million elected positions on the books?
Okay.
And for no purpose.
Gentlemen, Chris Kaheru says, when this age limit bill comes through, it will be about Museveni as a person, and the country will have to deal with it as such.
That's very true. I don't think that if, for example, what Angelo is raising right now, that we have too much representation. If it was the question that we're going to do to discuss the country's changing of the electoral roll so that you have less representation but more effective representation, if that was a national debate that we're having. But the issue, this one, is simply rotating around one individual's longevity staying in power far beyond the time that was this constitution has been changed how many times? Have you been recording?
By who?
No.
By those in power.
But this is my point, is that, you know, MPs, by the way, are the ones who lifted term limits.
Yeah.
Before you go and start pointing to the person who it benefits, there is a process, right?
But the person who benefited from the lifting of term limits
and how much money was paid
is reported to have.
But who took that money?
Deliberately bribed. So you want to blame those who were bribed, and you don't want to blame the person who bribed them.
But there is only there's a transaction.
Yeah. So and you're saying that the beneficiary has no blame. It's those who change the constitution.
I am criticizing the transaction itself. Uganda's politics.
Yeah, but you have to criticize the actors as well. You can't criticize only the transaction, yet the actors involved.
I am not offering a qualitative opinion. I have just told you that we have a stake in the peace. Now, if you want to deal with this age limit question, you have to look at what is at stake for Ugandans. What's at stake for Ugandans?
What's at stake for Ugandans is the future of the country. Is the future of the country. I think one of the callers from Lira actually was really underlining the real issue.
What issue?
The issue is that those who put in the constitution restraints and limitations on the presidency were thinking about how do you build a sustainable nation called Uganda, where there is predictable and systematic change of leadership periodically, such that the future stability of the country is guaranteed, the viability of the nation called Uganda is deepened.
So you think that caller from Lira was in a way responding to Rugasira?
In some ways, and responding also to Onapito and Angelo.
And there is no person who understands this better than him, because he's the one who covered the Constituent Assembly all through. So he understands the discussion where it was based.
And then he sat in Parliament
for 5 years.
And then served in State House.
You understand the reality. You don't understand. I do.
Okay, gentlemen.
First of all, that Constituent Assembly was heavily influenced by the same people who now want to change the Constitution.
To Onapito and the rest of us here, because we have about 2 minutes to get out of here. Yes, President Museveni might have come into power on his own terms.
But he doesn't own the country. He doesn't own the country.
After 35 years, and answers the media, should it be left to him
to decide when he wants to go?
How and when he leaves power?
No. You see,
and what are the consequences
of
that?
It has often been said that doing the same thing over and expecting different results is a definition of
madness.
I'm telling you. So look, I think Uganda is caught in a crisis. Not that they hate Yoweri Museveni, many people as a person, but they think that his going to stay in power has made delivery of services and that not to happen for whatever reasons. I think that question should also be addressed. If you cannot stop him from being in power, what is the trade-off for services to be delivered? That's all done. But if now he is going to be boxed into this corner of defending his constituency in power, I guarantee you there will be no delivery the way you want, because there are people who are going to gang up around him and spend all their time and whatever resources they have to say, we are defending your constituency.
Okay.
So I'm one of those, instead of removing age limit, you need to remove this concept that Yoweri Museveni will have to go
Angelo,
through another election.
I want to come to Angelo. I actually tend to disagree with you on that, because Angelo's diagnosis was that this is a debate about power. I think issues about service delivery, whether services are there or not. You see the debate about this MP who died, they buried her today, at only 29 years. She died giving birth. Yes, a tragedy, because the healthcare system is dysfunctional.
Why?
It's a whole different debate.
Why?
And people asking, your members of parliament, now an MP has died because of a dysfunctional healthcare system. How do you contextualize that? I think this is about how do you manage power at this stage.
I'm saying much of the power is about winning elections.
Yes.
And until when you remove that preoccupation, then you cannot shift power.
But we've had debates in the studio about elections and what they mean. We'll continue to have those. Angelo, If President Museveni determined how he got into power without Ugandans influencing that, should his exit also be left to him?
Well, you can ask the question to those who dream of democratic realism of the future. I voted no against the return of parties. Even then I said this is really a transaction that benefits only Yoweri Museveni. And the fact of the matter is that elections, by their very nature, today in Africa, if you mark it on the calendar, signs of instability everywhere they happen. What does that have to do with health services that would have saved that MP's life? Why are we preoccupied with this overrepresented, heavily paid public sector only because Ugandans want to convince themselves they're going to be safer? I think that's the reality that we ought to confront.
Hasn't this been sold to Ugandans? We'll have that debate another day, because I don't think Ugandans have multiplied
Dr. Besigye and others are saying, no, look, if you elect us into power, we are going to perform better. And I don't think that is really any more realistic.
By a reality set for them.
Yes, exactly. Yes. I don't think that it's going to be any more realistic than the system that is in place now. You have to dismantle the system entirely.
What is the question?
No, the same question I put to Angelo and Onapito. That if Museveni determined how he came into power, should the country also leave it to him to determine how he gets out of power?
If I use the Onapito's prism of realism and non-realism, realistically he's not going to do it. If it was a natural and respect of the values that we have, we put in the amount of time we put into making the constitution, and the amount of time that we expect that a person who came to power as a guerrilla person to come and lead this country, hoping the course that you made, I'm hoping that this one is going to be not a mere change of guard,
but a fundamental change.
Fundamental change. I would think that it is necessary for him to have to say that I've left only one thing, a legacy in Uganda, a working constitution.
First of all, Charlie, I don't think it is true that Museveni came into power on his own terms and on his own effort. If he hadn't been supported by the peasants in the Luwero Triangle, if he didn't have the foot soldiers who fought for him, he wouldn't have come to power. So it is not true that he came on his own and therefore he should be left to do as he wills. But secondly, I think that we need to understand the danger of having an imperial president on and on and on and forever. It creates uncertainty, it creates all sorts of tensions in the country, it creates unpredictability about the future of the country, where we don't know what is going to happen to this country tomorrow after this man who has been in power for more than 30 years suddenly leaves. We have no idea. We don't know. No. And you see that is the blackmail. That's the blackmail. No. That is the blackmail of those who advocate for the status quo, want to throw out there to other people and say, well, you know, at least we have peace now. We might have instability tomorrow without the man. So the mind games that somebody
have instability now.
The mind games that one of the callers mentioned earlier is precisely this whole idea of saying, well, we know we are now doing well, so we should keep where we are. But truth of the matter is that without a predictable process of changing leadership, you cannot have a viable society for the long term.
Okay. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you very much to Robert in London, the gentleman from Lira, Rugasera in Nalia, Simon in Kisasi, George in Kawempe, Simon in Kampala, and the other caller who called. The phone is still ringing up to now, people trying to contribute to the discussion. But can you take this discussion, carry on the debate on our social media platforms, Facebook and Twitter, and of course, WhatsApp, continue the debate on especially how the media should handle this very touchy subject, because how the media handles itself and handles the subject will have significant consequences on where we end at the end of the day. Thank you very much, all our viewers, for joining us tonight, and always thank you very much to the production crew that stays up late to deliver the show to you, and thank you very much to my panel. From me, say good night.